So first, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I was born and raised in Texas. Grew up on the edge of town. My dad had grown up in a small farm out on the middle of nowhere in West Texas. So he had in his spirit the whole business of taking care of farm animals. So I got to do that. I had a horse, I had a cow. I milked the cow morning and night, rode the horse every day, acted a little bit like a cowboy.
Yeah.
So I went through high school as a music person, went to college and changed from music in the middle of it to a pre-med. And so I went to medical school in Houston and then came to San Francisco, where I have been all this time late. And I only started writing Westerns maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'd been writing poetry before then. I did some NPR commentary. I did some short stories. Now doing some Westerns
Nice.
and starting a podcast coming up real soon
It's cool.
called Buckaroo State of Mind, all about Westerns.
That's awesome. I love that. Have you always been a writer? I know you said you were into music, so have you been writing since you were really young, or did you just get into it like 4 years ago? Tell me.
I have not been a writer until I would say halfway through life. Went through a little troublesome stuff in the middle of my life and tried to figure it out in some ways. Thought I was doing a pretty good job of that. Turned out I wasn't so sure about it. And instinctively, I just started writing. First poetry. And I wasn't writing anything very good. I was just putting down some thoughts and trying to make them pretty. But what happened in the process was I felt a little better about the stuff that was going on. It gave me a sense of understanding, maybe, sort of grounded me a little bit.
Mhm.
So the writing proved valuable and thus started an addiction that has kept going until now. Only it has taken many forms. It started as poetry. I went to a few short stories that I wrote for NPR,
Mhm.
and then I translated those into longer stories, which I published as a collection. And then I was writing poetry all along. And then Nick Whale got a hold of me and made me do some Westerns.
I love that. I love that. I know you've only just recently started writing Westerns, but have you always been a fan of Westerns growing up the way that you did?
When I was 12 years old, maybe 10 years old, my mother would drop me off at the movie theater on Saturday at 1 o'clock, and it would always be a Western. And the Westerns were preceded by what we called serials. It would be Mysterious Mr. M or Rocket Man or Gene Autry or one of those people, and they'd have an episode, and then they'd hang them from a branch off a cliff until you came back next week to find out what happened.
I like that.
So I knew all those people, Gene Autry, Lash LaRue, Durango Kid, all those people.
So I know you said that Nick found you, but can you tell me more about how you kind of started writing for DSP? How did that happen?
He got a hold of some of my writing and he contacted me and he said, you should write some Westerns. And I said, I'd never thought about writing any Westerns. And he said, well, I think you'd be pretty good at it. That was his estimation. And so I was tempted enough. And once I started, I realized, hey, I grew up in Texas. I rode a horse. I know the people. I know the geography.
Right.
I know the culture and I know what works and doesn't work in terms of speaking that language. So why not? And furthermore, I could put into Westerns any of the other kinds of things that I was interested in. Poetic language, though you can't get too carried away with that. Points of view, philosophy, love stories. So I put all those things into my Westerns and it makes them a little bit different. I mean, I use the same structure that Western writers have to use to build up tension and conflict and resolution and all those things. But laced in between there, I put in these little messages of insight, maybe, or wisdom, perhaps, make it interesting. And I've had fun doing it.
What are you currently working on at the moment? Can you tell me anything about it?
Sure. Well, I've spent a lot of time with this idea of a podcast. And so I kind of thought, first of all, I was going to do a podcast that would involve a lot of eclectic things that are part of my life, jazz music, classical music, philosophy, astronomy, medicine, things like that. I was going to do podcast like that. But I decided, and with some advice, that a podcast like that would probably not be very popular
Mhm.
because podcasts, it seems, need to have a niche.
You really have to like niche down specifically to get a lot of people.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
right. And the advertisers who support podcasts are savvy to the notion it doesn't have to be huge, it just needs to be focused because they have a focused audience themselves. And if it's a match, then they'd be very interested in helping to support. So Nick had been talking about a Western podcast, and I'd kind of put it on the back burner. And then when I got that advice about niche, I decided, okay, I'll switch over to Western. And I played around with several ideas, but I ended up thinking of this idea of the Buckaroo state of mind, because that implies not only a culture, history, way of life, but it also implies a certain philosophical point of view. And I could have fun with that. So what I've done is I've assembled music from country western musicians. I've assembled interviews from DSP authors. I've put together comedy from stand-up comedians, and I have cowboy poetry in there as well. Baxter Black was my first poet that I read, probably the most famous cowboy poet. And so I've already recorded two of these sessions, but I haven't turned them loose yet because I'm still tinkering with them a little bit.
They
You
sound really interesting.
well, it says well, it's kind of a variety show like I had planned to do anyway.
Right.
And
I love how it's Western theme, but you've got a little bit of everything in it.
yeah, it has a little bit of everything, a little poetry, a little music, a little philosophy, a little storytelling, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's all there, and it's just under the banner of Western, so I can live with that.
Nice. I love that. Going back to writing though, of the Westerns that you've written with DSP so far, what has been your favorite project?
Everyone that I do is my favorite in the moment.
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
I think that as a writer, that has to be how it works best.
mm,
You are challenged by the piece that you are working on. And if I'm absolutely true about it, you don't know where it's going to go when you're writing it. And if you do know where it's going to go, it's probably not going to be very interesting because there's no sense of discovery.
mm,
And one of the exciting things about writing and therefore reading is that you discover something you didn't think you knew about ahead of time.
mm,
And so the writer gets informed by the direction that the story takes. And so you get to a certain point, and there's a branching point, like in complexity theory, when there's a branching point.
mm.
And when that happens, you end up taking a course sometimes you'd never had any idea you're going to take. And you end up getting a little epiphany, a little sense of aha, a little sense of, oh, this
Oh,
is wild and weird, and I like it. And
nice.
so, yeah, that's how that works for me.
So what is your writing process like? Do you go into your books with any sort of plan, or do you kind of just go with the flow and see what happens?
Well, my belief is that if you get the first sentence right,
Mm,
then the rest of the book falls into place. So I do a fair amount of time thinking about how I'm going to start. And so I may come up with a character, a particular quirk that this character may have, a weakness maybe. I may come up with a situation that is tense already, like a massacre that just happened next door in the town,
mm,
something like that, just to get the ball rolling. And then what you do with your characters, it's like Vonnegut says, you put them under a lot of stress. You get them into trouble. You make them fail. You put them under somebody else's gun. And then it's when you learn what your character is made of, because how that character behaves in that situation tells you what his personality is, what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. And that's what makes it human. If you're writing about some sort of mechanical, stilted, paper cutty type of character, that's not interesting at all. There's no depth to it. But if you put your character under duress and you find out what makes them tick, and that gets more interesting.
So you've written so much over so many different genres, you've done so much, but is there a project maybe that you've had in the back of your mind, or I don't know, something out there? What would be your dream project to maybe someday write, or have you already done it?
Well, the short answer is to always have something to do. And I haven't seemed to run out of ideas when it comes to that. I tend to work in fits and starts. I think I wrote 10 Westerns in about 3 years. I'm writing haiku now, which is a very short form of
Yeah.
poetry. I've had 5 haiku published every month for the past 2 years in various haiku journals and one book of haiku. So I had a heavy amount of effort and attention focused around haiku for 2 years.
Mm.
And just when 2 years finished, I sort of hit a pause. And then what filled that blank spot was the podcast idea and working on that.
Mm.
And now that's coming together very nicely. I think you're going to like it. It's free spirited, it's fun, it's lighthearted, but it's going to deal with some serious issues. So it's a lot of fun. So what do I want eventually? What every writer wants, and that is to write the great American novel.
Okay. Of course.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but you know what? I feel pretty good about the kinds of things that I've written already, and I feel very lucky to have a publisher at all that would publish my work. I got published by Random House one time, and so I thought after that happened, well, I think I've accomplished all I need to have accomplished. And then since that time, been a bunch of other things that have happened too. So it's working.
Yeah, you're just doing it all. One of my last questions that I have for you today is what is some advice that you would give to aspiring writers?
Don't postpone. Live your life as deeply and as widely as you possibly can. Don't disparage the bad times because that deepens you. Don't get depressed about the way life goes because it always picks up. What you want to do is to put on the page everything that you have in your soul. And the thing about it is, you can't think about it all the time without sitting down before that blank piece of paper, which is daunting, and put down that first line. And when you get that first line down and you like it, then you're there.
David, before you go, where can people find you on social media? Do you have any Facebook, Twitter, any of that?
I do have a Facebook. I have Twitter, but I haven't looked at it for 100 years. So
Oh,
it's not.
that's okay.
I am going to have Patreon. In fact, I do have Patreon now,
Oh, nice.
supporting this effort
Podcast.
with the a Buckaroo State of Mind. And people, I think they're going to like it. And if you support it a little bit a month, you know how that works.
Mhm.
Then you get some special deals. You'll get maybe a one-on-one visit sometime, or you get some merchandise of some kind. We'll make it nice for you. Yeah. And then I have a website called davidwattsbooks.com. And that's sort of the hub for all these things that I'm involved with. You'll find poetry there, you'll find short stories there, you'll find mystery novels there. I've written 2 of those. And you'll find all these Westerns posted there as well. And then we're going to make a page for the podcast so that you'll know ahead of time what's coming up and the kinds of things to look forward to.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your week
You
and
too.
have a good one. Bye.
Bye.